right, good morning, everybody. I got my Metaplanet shirt on. There's a lot going on today. Hopefully, you can all hear me. Let me just double check my mics and all my levels. Yeah, I think we're good. All right, I don't think Ethereum is going to flip Bitcoin. I really don't believe that's true. But again, I do think Ethereum is going to do really well in the weeks ahead. We're going to talk about a lot of that. I wanted to talk about this too. So, after the Fed speech last week at Jackson Hole, we now have an 87.3% chance of at least one rate cut occurring in September, which again is about what, 3 weeks from now. And thank you for the belated birthdays. I appreciate that. I had a pretty good birthday weekend. I even got a shout out from Tom Lee, who I love. So that's a wonderful way to end the weekend. I did want to speak to this real quick. I just reposted this a second ago, and thank you for Wildcat Mahone. It's a great name. You are now a member, and you can talk in chat and ask questions. So the Compound had a video on the 22nd. I think that's Friday. Talking with Tom Lee, just asking him a bunch of questions. It was a wonderful video. If you ever wanted to understand his take on V-shaped recoveries and AI-driven economy and what's coming next and Jackson Hole and Ethereum and all these other things, there's a lot you can learn, and we're going to talk about that in a second here. Shout out from Tom Lee is fucking dope. Yeah, he's done that a few times, but it's always appreciated. And again, he's such a badass. Like, he's even in the Compound video that I was just talking about. Those guys reference the fact that he's probably the it man for analysts and macroeconomics and in like the last 10 years, and I think that's probably true. So to get any kind of accolades from him is fucking huge. Michael Arowet said there are chances that 2025 will be the third year of contraction in Germany. That's really sad. He said it's never happened before. It all starts with values. Left indoctrination in schools and media has hit its price, or has had its price. Germans become similar to the French. Hard work and entrepreneurialism are not valued anymore. Again, it's all about just what can the government give you. I think that's true, and I think it's a sad testament to a lot of Europe right now. Because again, Germany was one of the manufacturing powerhouses of Europe, and now it's just gone. It's just completely gone. Market Ear, I've liked him a lot lately. He said, if Fed cuts rates while growth is okay and inflation is elevated, it could trigger a bubble like 1998. You know our saying, if you see a bubble, ride it. And so he's comparing Fed 1998 with similar conditions, and we're going to look at more about this in a second, and what came next into the dot-com bubble. So saying basically that we could have exponential upside over the next 1 to 2 years. It's possible. I don't know if that's my base case, but very exciting. Yeah, Metaplanet in the Japanese market after a lot of good news, new exchange-related news, looking really good. Again, we got these two gaps under here. I don't think we're going to fill them. I do think we could get a grind in Bitcoin. We'll look at a little bit of that in a second. Again, we're down, kind of testing that support line for the entirety of the year going into last year, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner. But Metaplanet up 8.3%. Again, just lots of good stuff. They have Eric Trump as an advisor now. They're getting added to the Japanese FTSE, I want to say it is. And just a bunch of, they bought more Bitcoin. There's a bunch of stuff going on with Metaplanet. So I think it's going to be strong. I do think that Bitcoin and the altcoin markets dumped a little bit after the Japanese market closed. So we'll probably see, I don't know if we'll see upside right away in Metaplanet, but there are good things coming very, very quickly. Wanted to talk to this. So again, we think we're at the start of a bull market, potentially. I don't know that I'm in the it's going to go on for years thing, but I do think, again, at least with Bitcoin, we know we've got 2 to 3 months. But I wanted to talk about this, the great financial crisis. I know people are going to be bringing this up again. Logan had posted something about this. Lead analyst at Housing Wire Financial Truth on housing economics. All American bears have failed since 1970 or 1790. So he had a really interesting thing here. He showed how adjustable rate mortgage share of applications were huge before the 2008 great financial crisis. I actually had this happen to one of my neighbors. She bought a house and renovated it. It was beautiful. She did a great job. She was on an adjustable rate mortgage. Like 1/3 of people from the time frame of 2004 all the way up to 2006, 1/3 of mortgage applications had adjustable rate mortgages. I was one of those when I first bought my house. And so again, this was just horrible These were horrible conditions because mortgage rates were fairly low. We had Moody's and all these rating agencies taking a bunch of shitty debt where people couldn't afford their houses, where the brokers, the mortgage brokers, didn't even try and make sure that people could afford their houses. And they lumped them all together and said, hey, since it's a diversified pile of shit, it's now AAA credit because it's diversified, even though it was shit related credit where very little due diligence was done to confirm that buyers could even afford their loans, let alone having them be a third of them being on adjustable rate mortgages, which was guaranteed to fuck them and create the worst mortgage catastrophe in the United States. That's just not the condition now. So right now we have about 7% of loans, not 35, 36, 37% on adjustable rate mortgages. So we don't have those same concerns in the mortgage sector as what we had in the 2008 great financial crisis. Monday morning bear trap? I think so. Wasn't Trump announced as MTPLS advisor back in April? I don't remember. Off the top of my head. And maybe his role has changed a little bit. We'll look at Metaplanet in a second. It maybe is an advisor. Maybe I misspoke. Kobayashi letter posted public confidence in the Fed chair is near record lows. I don't see why anyone would, everybody should understand why this is, right? At the start of Greenspan, the end of the dot-com bubble, people were already, just not thinking very, very highly of the Fed. The 2008 great financial crisis shockingly boosted the Fed with Bernanke, and people thought it was great until they eventually just started, it started to wane. And then in 2020, I guess it makes sense, maybe. I don't know exactly where this line is drawn. People got optimistic about the Fed because they printed a bunch of money, and then afterwards they saw the effects of that. And so now we're at record lows, having a centralized party that's supposed to be partisan but is politically biased, controlling the money printer. I don't know how good that is. We talk about Fed independence, but I guess the only independence we're looking for is independence away from the government itself, which doesn't really exist. So again, I don't know. I can see why people are just don't believe anymore in the Fed. I get it. Hit the like button, people. Yes, that would be great. Pandu says, good morning. Wild Cat Mahone is now talking in chat since he became a member. Is the Fed abandoning the... Yeah, they already did. They literally deleted an inflation target from at least the Jackson Hole speech. It's just gone. Hey, Jesse, so happy to see the shout out from Tom Lee. Love it. Yep, super cool stuff. I wanted to talk about this one, though, too, with Kobayashi letter. I got another friend who posted stuff about this all the time. I think this actually came from him, but whatever. This is where we got it from, so we're going to talk about it. He said, in fact, when the Fed cut rates within 2% of all-time highs, the S&P 500 loves it. So this is what I wanted to talk about. There's going to be many doomers like Darth Powell and a bunch of other people that are going to talk about how if the Fed cuts rates, the world is coming to an end. I'm going to argue against that. So he said, when the Fed cuts rates within 2% of all-time highs, the S&P 500 loves it. In 20 of the last 20 times this has happened, the S&P has risen an average of 13.9% over the following 12 months per Carson Research. Asset owners will party like it's 2021. So again, some in the next month had down time frames, small amounts, like 80s. 80s had some of that. The next 3 months, some were down. Again, 80s, 1990 was an example where it was down. But if we look since that time frame, the next 3 months were positive. If we look at the next 6 months, 2019 and twice in 2019 did we had negative time frames over the next 6 months. And I believe that was some weirdness too, where we had the Fed raise rates to do a test and then lower rates to try and fix it. So that was kind of some abnormalities there. But again, over the next year, 100% success rate, 20 out of 20 goes higher. And so we're more likely to see that, right? That's the base case of what I believe. And again, if you watch that Tom Lee video from the compound, you're going to see a very, very bullish man. I wanted to speak to something real quick before we go further. We don't have a lot in the way of data today outside of the Chicago Fed National Activity Index. So that's pretty much it. Then we have new home sales probably going to be abysmal, maybe getting just a little bit better. And then Dallas Fed Manufacturing Index, which we're hoping to see go up again another month in a row. But I won't be around for that part today. So that's all we have for economic data today. And then tomorrow, again, durable goods we're getting, Case Shiller home price, a lot of home related stuff. Again, I wouldn't expect too much out of it. Consumer confidence, Richmond Fed data, Dallas Fed data. So we're going to be getting a lot more data points tomorrow, but this morning is very light. On the inflation front, we're looking around 2%. So again, Fed's eliminated their target. We're still not seeing craziness in regard to tariffs, even though we are going to probably start to see some upticks in inflation. That's probably going to happen, right? We're going to at least have one-time price increases. We're neutral on the coin market cap fear and greed index, perfectly neutral. On the stock index, we've climbed out of the neutral territory and are sitting at about 61 in greed. So again, we're starting to get greedy in that sector. All right, let's keep going. Asset entities is up 25% in pre-market. Let's take a look. Is there any new news? I mean, the ticker looks good. Oof, you're right. After 7% up on Monday, we might have to see what kind of data points we're looking at here, guys. Let's just bring this up. So we're sitting above the .618. Isn't that funny? That's right where I had my alert. So I'm actually going to bring that a little bit higher. That is a heck of an increase. It's into the breakout zone with that. This thing was down, and I've actually got do I have to adjust this? Oh, this is Fibonacci retracement. We're going to have to kill that anyway. Let's do this. We'll get a Fibonacci extension in here and save it real quick, and then we'll get back to our news-related events. If anybody has a news-related event, Strategy buys 3,081 Bitcoin. Again, that might be nothing to some people, but I think for the week, out of all these companies, we've still got like 3,500 Bitcoin being acquired in a week from the Bitcoin treasury companies, which is basically all the new supply of Bitcoin because there's only 450 roughly generated per day. What's up with CleanSpark? It's getting hit just like Mara. The HPCs are doing better. Regular miners suck. So yeah, this asset entities was down 77%. Now it's only down with this boost this morning, 59%. So getting there. We'll see what this thing ends up doing. Still a small cap with some potential to run. And I own a lot of it, so I'd love to see it do well. The .618 Fibonacci retracement is at 381%. And I think the overshoot, so that's like my mid case right there. And I think the overshoot is probably over here to like the 47 range, a 10x almost from where we are today. Definitely a 10x from where we were on Friday, which was up 7% on the day. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what kind of news-related stuff we have right now in regard to that, because I got to take a look. There's got to be something. All right. Let's see here. You got to love it, though. Attention shareholders, the vote is open. Vote yes to approve the reverse merger with Strive to officially start Bitcoin accumulation strategy. So it's like they're finally getting started. That's probably the news. Let's see. Asset entities announced S4 declared effective by SEC shareholder approved vote for merger to be held on September 9th. Okay. So people, I think, are getting excited that they're actually, their strategy is going to start to be implemented. I think that's what we're looking at. So that's cool. We'll take up days and everything that we own. I got a decent amount of asset entities. Let's see here. What do I own right now? I should retweet really super quickly. I'm going to retweet the MicroStrategy post as well. Hey, CleanSpark is pre-HPC now. I've heard that. We'll see. They're a little behind, but hey, man. Whatever it takes. Where's this announcement? Let me go to latest. Oh, is this it? 310 million from common ATM, 3,000 purchased. There we go. That's a good breakdown. From my boy Ragnar. Iron announced good news, expanding AI cloud, closed Friday, 52-week high. Iron has been doing really good. Iron was up 9.39% in pre-market, or I'm sorry, last Friday, and it's only down 0.33% pre-market today. Definitely beating all of the miners. Mara down 4% in pre-market. CleanSpark about the same. And so Iron again is just a leader when you compare it to these others. They don't stand a chance really. All right. Anyway, let's get back to it. Let's see. What else do we have? The compound interview with Tom Lee is phenomenal. Going to finish that after your stream. Guys, check it out if you haven't. It's really good. Tom Lee is a brilliant man. Real quickly, though, Kobayashi letter and the relief in home prices likely won't come. He said the Fed has come too clear that has become too clear that they will remain attentive to inflation risk. So rate cuts are coming, but not an aggressive pace like the 300 bips that Trump wants. Mortgage rates will drop, but it won't be enough. I disagree with this, actually. I disagree with it, and we're going to talk about why in a little bit. This is part of it. Bar chart shows home sellers now outnumber buyers by more than 500,000. Again, the reason I backed out of my home purchase was this reason. I can see home prices dropping. I can see listings going up. And this is all before we open up what is normally more than 80% of home sales. And that is existing homes. So since 2021, when the Fed raised rates at the most aggressive rate in history, we have had, and you can see how that worked, right? Look at the number of buyers versus sellers. At the end of 2021, they flipped this, and right about here, they flipped it, and then the buyers have been coming down ever since, while sellers have started to grow. So the Fed flipped things. What do we have? Sharp Technology, so this is SBET, announces $400 million private placement to accumulate Solana. In smaller market cap than Ethereum. If we see more companies do this, we see Solana flip. Are they doing that under SBET, or is this a different one? Interesting. But again, I think we're going to see more of this. I think we're going to see more sellers than buyers, especially as prices are coming down. I think we've seen tons of apartment buildings and condos and things come online. I think that's going to apply more pressure to the downside. And again, if we looked at that, if we looked at shelter, if we extracted out or looked at the latest data in shelter, the Fed would be cutting rates right now. I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see rates coming down. I think, guys, it was a really good sign on Friday when we had Jackson Hole and we had the Fed talking. And again, we didn't see a massive increase in these yields across all these different time frames. And they look like they're still going to roll over. We still have this bearish divergence that started, in 2022 that wants to pull this down from the RSI standpoint. I think that's still what's going to happen. The Fed has a lot of tricks up its sleeve, just from like land leasing, from revaluing gold, from the supplemental leverage ratio, the SLR being modified. They've got a lot of tricks up their sleeve in order to be able to make it to where these things start to change. How much do I have, real quickly, in asset entities? Let me just look here and see my portfolio-wise what that is. ASST, only 2%. Bummer. Wish it was more. But I'll take a 25%. I'll always take a 20. It's probably 3% of my portfolio now. So we'll take it. Let's see here real quick. And we're going to talk about the Fed too, because again, I disagree with Kobayashi's statements about the Fed lowering rates for a reason, and we'll talk about that. I said I've been saying this since last year, so let's listen to what Treasury Secretary Bessent was saying on CNBC last week.
I think that we could either go back to the 90s where we had good low inflationary growth, or back to President Trump's first term. But I think the real problem here is we're seeing some distributional aspects to the higher rates, as your earlier guest said, especially in housing and in for lower income households with high credit card debt. So we're seeing this big CapEx boom. Part of it's AI, part of it's the tax bill. And so CapEx is doing well, but households, home building is struggling. And, you were asking me about interviewing Fed candidates, and there's the ability, everyone has the ability to look at the current data, but let's just think about if we keep constraining home building, then what kind of inflation does that create 1 or 2 years out? So, a cut here could facilitate a boom or a pickup in home building, which will keep prices down 1-2 years down the road.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that, and I think we need to lower rates. Somebody said LW crypto. You got a comment that I want to speak to. Buyers will increase when interest rates get down, though. Also, huh? So you're saying buyers are going to come up when interest rates start dropping? That's wrong. That's not actually accurate. Will they eventually? Yes. But buyers don't necessarily start buying a lot as inventories come up and prices start dropping. There can be lags that take years. I don't think they'll take that long. But again, till the spring, maybe, when you normally have seasonal buyers stepping in, totally possible because people don't want to buy when they're seeing prices dropping every week on the houses that they're looking to purchase. They don't want to buy then. As they see more inventories, again, over almost 85% of existing home sales over the last several decades before the 2021 increase in rates that was the most dramatic in history, they were from existing home sales. So as people see rates coming down and people see prices coming down, existing home sales are exploding because people are realizing, oh shit, this is my opportunity to sell my house. I'm not if I don't sell now because prices are dropping and the market's starting to explode. I better get my house listed. Otherwise, I might not get the price I want in the future. People are saying prices are going to drop on homes. Rates are coming down. The market's opening up. And so there'll be a delay. That's what I want to make sure that people understand. There will be a delay in the demand. 35% now? Well, shit. Yep, they're right. We'll see how long that lasts, but that's a heck of an open. You got to love a 35% open. This is a very small cap. This is why we own the small caps too, guys. It might only be 3% of my portfolio, but if this thing 10 or 20x's, it can turn into a much larger amount for asset entities. So loving the 40+% roughly uptick in 2 business days. So glad I sold my house last year. You probably had the perfect timing, Kirby Tax. You probably literally had the perfect timing. I think a lot has changed since that time frame. But I agree with this, though. I think a rate cut could spark new construction, ease pressures on families and on the government, and make it to where, again, in the future, we make it to where inflation is lower on shelter. This is stuff that nobody's talking about, but I think it's very important to understand. Besson is a smart man. Kobayashi also had another good one. I like Kobayashi. He's a bear, but a lot of analytics, and I love analytics. Just like Zero Hedge, just like Tom Lee with Fundstrat, just like all the people that are really great. Yardini's somebody I'm starting to pay more attention to. I love analytics. I love data points because you can find truth in them. He said the U.S. government needs to lower rates more than anyone. The U.S. Treasury interest payments have reached $1.2 trillion over the last 12 months. If rates stay steady, annual interest expense would hit $1.4 trillion in 2026. To keep interest costs stable, the average yield on U.S. government debt with a maturity of 5 to 6 years would need to drop to 3.1%. That's not that far away, guys. If we did 5 rate cuts between now and the spring, we would get to this level and we would have stable interest payments on our government debt. And that's what we want. It's what we want. This implies the Fed would need to cut rates by at least 75 bip points at least to calm the fire. Deficit spending is out of control. I agree with that. It says 5-year U.S. Treasury yield less than 3.1% needed to stabilize interest payments, U.S. Treasury interest payment scenario. So it's showing interest payments in billions and what happened down here for 2020. For our interest payments, and then again, money printer went burr, interest payments exploded higher. Now they're saying if we do this where we get down to the 3.1%, instead of having this projection that just keeps going up, if we keep rates stable, again, if we keep rates stable, we make our government debt unsustainable. So if people believe that the U.S. needs to be on a fiscally sustainable path, we have to lower rates. I don't understand. There's so many macroeconomists that can't get the concept of if government debt is unsustainable because of high rates, then it's not going to be sustainable. And who the fuck is going to buy our bonds? So we have to stabilize here. There is no choice, and I think it's good that the immediate reaction from the bond market at the long end of the curve last week was that yields were coming down. I think that's a really positive thing. Y'all think we bounce here on BTC? I think we slowly bounce. I actually think what happens as we consolidate on Bitcoin, and we'll talk about more of that in a second. But again, global liquidity, guys, the global liquidity index. We're on the uptick heading into the end of 2026 or the beginning of 2026, first quarter of 2026. So remember that. This is not a time where traditionally markets go down. We have the IWM breaking out. This is basically the ETF version of the Russell, the Russell 2000 index, all the small caps. So small caps are starting to perform, which shows that we're risk on. If you look at China this morning, you can see that stocks in China, like BABA, are starting to perform. I don't know why anybody would buy Chinese stock when you don't even own them. But again, it shows that we're risk on, and we love that. That's a good thing. And again, we're just seeing this across the spectrum and everything. There's a bunch more in here. Oh, here's one I want to go over. Jim Bianco. Okay, so the Trump posted this, right? Lisa Cook, the fraudster, out. She's not out yet, but she will be. Why did Trump post this? There's 7 voting members on the Fed board. If they get rid of Lisa Cook, they can appoint a new one. And then Trump has Bowman, Moran, Waller, and Lisa Cook. And then we have too late Powell, Barr, and Jefferson. So he will have controlling share. And I think this is what's going to happen. So again, just be very clear. It looks like they're gaining control. Also, what are my short-term thoughts on Palantir? I can't even gauge Palantir over the short term. I don't know. It probably goes up, just keeps going up. It should go down because of valuation, but I wouldn't bet against Palantir, and especially in a market where if we're seeing a lot of liquidity increasing, I would not bet against Palantir. But I said in this post, spoken like someone who doesn't understand these events happened or how things have changed since 2008. So I wanted to speak to this. This Rowe writer said, "Wonder how soon until markets remember that the start of a Fed cutting cycle marked the top of both the dot-com bubble and the Great Recession. This time is different, though, obviously. So again, they just don't understand what happened in these markets. First off, the dot-com bubble was full bubble. Full bubble. You had companies like Pets.com that had absolutely no revenue that were valued as just massive companies. And it wasn't just one company like that. They were prevalent. Think of like the GME and the SPACs of, up 2020 into 2021 when the market was just exploding higher. Think of times like that. Think of 2023 after 2022 when everything was just bubbling up and getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Actually, that's probably not a good example. The pandemic bounce is probably a better example. And that's what it looked like in 2000 with all the dot-coms. And then we had the housing crisis that I talked about and why that happened. And in 2008, we literally have nothing like that. You can't say that CRE is like that, the commercial real estate market. You can't say anything is bubbled like that right now. The only thing that's bubbled is the debt, and we have to print more money. And when we print more money, it goes into assets like Bitcoin and other equities. So these are just not the same thing. And again, I love how he neglects the fact too of here in 2018 when we did something similar, late 2018, where we cut rates at pretty drastic measures, right? Pretty steep decline. And yet, if we look over here, what did the market do? It just went straight up. So he just totally glosses over that one time where we brought rates back down to zero. Or the fact that we brought rates down over here in 2024 and the market has done nothing but go up too. So let's just ignore both of those and then just doom and gloom. That's always great. I wanted to talk about this. Stable coins are just growing like crazy. So if you look over here, we could see just USDT and USDC just launching like crazy. If we look over here from where they were at the low in 2024 or beginning of 2024, right over here, less than 120 billion or right around. Now they're about double that. And again, so what is this going to be like in another year? Could it be 400 billion, even with a contraction in stable coins? I think so. Real quickly, we have Kevin Hassett talking. I'm going to jump into this real fast. We also have some fun stuff to go over. We got a lot. Let me go back here. though, and see. I like Kevin. I think he's a smart dude. I want to see what he has to say.
Welcome back to Squawk Box. President Trump announcing Intel has agreed.
Yes, agree. Wild. Cat Mahone. AI isn't in a bubble. Dude, we're just getting started. I want to talk about how tokens are dropping in price like crazy, how we're able to do a lot more with less, and how dramatically that's going to transform margins in all these companies with the help of companies like Palantir, too, that literally where people just all their data gets pulled in and then Palantir starts making suggestions. That video from Tom Lee, he actually talked, he said, I don't want to talk about the company, but I mean, I'm talking about a large Fortune 500 company that signed up for Palantir and they took all their data in. And then they went from like their hedging strategies for the commodities that they had weren't really profitable consistently. And they had, they just had issues with profitability and growth. And they spit this stuff into Palantir's tools, and it came back with a bunch of suggestions. They implemented them, and like magic, they started doing better with their hedging strategy, and they started to increase margins and do better as a company. That kind of stuff isn't just Palantir. Palantir is a beautiful example of it, but there's a lot of other AI and technology advancements that are happening that are going to benefit all of us. And so I just want to be very clear. People are underestimating that by quite a bit. Let's listen to and see what Kevin Hassett has to say.
Agreed to give the U.S. government a 10% stake in the company. Joining us right now, talk about that and so much more. We're going to talk about.
I don't know that I love the 10% stake thing, but I have yet to fully judge it. I need to understand some of the methodology behind it, but I don't love government getting stakes of companies, kind of picking winners and losers. I don't know if I love that, even though I do understand how we need the foundry business.
Jay Powell and everything else. White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Kevin, it is great to see you this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So here's the question. Ronald Reagan famously said the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Right? You remember that line, and it's
Sure.
a line that I think it's been used by Republicans for the last several decades.
Fair.
Until maybe Friday. Can you explain the rationale behind taking this 10% stake?
Right. Well, it's not really a taking, right? The bottom line is that because of the CHIPS Act, the U.S. government had decided to give a whole bunch of money to Intel, and the president.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah, he's going to explain it all, but I actually am totally on board with this. I forgot that I read this weekend. They're just simply taking some of the money that was devoted from the previous government, trying to figure out how they can spend it on Intel. And instead of just giving them the money, they're like, we want 10% stake in the company since we're forced to give you this money. That actually makes sense.
Trump and Howard Lutnick, Secretary Lutnick,
that makes sense.
Talked to Intel about the progress they were making and the hurdles that they had to hop over in order to get the money. And I don't think they're particularly happy with that progress. And so in the end, they worked out a deal where Intel is going to get the CHIPS money, but in exchange, we're going to get some equity. And equity is not voting, so there's not going to be government intrusion into the business of Intel. It's more like a down payment on a sovereign wealth fund, which many, many countries have.
I don't hate
Kevin,
that.
though, is this the beginning of a larger effort by the U.S. government to take equity stakes in other industries that we subsidize?
I don't hate that. Again, they were forced to give this money. If they're going to be forced to give this money, it's awesome that they're actually trying to get a stake out of the company to get some value add. And then maybe we can talk other people to help consult with them to help them, because we do need a foundry business in the United States. We need like our own homegrown version. I don't know. Intel used to be a great company. It's been shit for a long time, but maybe we can get it to where others work with them to help create something of value. But I do like the fact that if you're forced to give them money anyways, and you can't back out of it, you might as well get it to where the government can benefit from their success and has a reason to try and help with it. Again, it blurs the lines, but this is better than the way it looks at face value.
Or other companies in the AI and chip space that we subsidize. So a good example is AMD. Another example might be Taiwan Semiconductor.
Right. Well, I think this is a very, very special circumstance because of the massive amount of CHIPS Act spending that was coming Intel's way. But the president has made it clear all the way back to the campaign that he thinks that in the end, it would be great if the U.S. could start to build up a sovereign wealth fund. And so I'm sure that at some point there'll be more transactions, if not in this industry, in other industries.
Okay, so we should expect the U.S. government to be taking more equity stakes in businesses around the country. That is something that if you're a CEO this morning watching us, you should say, okay, the Sovereign Wealth Fund may be coming and trying to effectively buy in some kind of equity stake.
It's possible, yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, that if in the past the federal government has been giving money away lickety-split to companies, and the taxpayers have received nothing in return. And so now what's happening with the Intel deal is the CHIPS Act money is going out as planned, but instead of it just going out and disappearing into the ether, the U.S. taxpayers are getting a little bit of equity. I can really not see how anyone would think that's a bad thing, unless you thought that the government was then going to go in and run the company. But these are going to be shares that don't have voting rights. The government's going to stay out of it.
Well, it goes back a little bit to the Ronald Reagan quote that I started with, which is when, for many, many years, you know, you and I used to have conversations about Solyndra and how I think you thought that was a terrible, terrible mistake for the U.S. government to be getting involved in. We have been
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I agree with that, JDEC. But at the same time, though, if they don't have voting rights, if they're just trying to basically make it to where, hey, if this company does well, we benefit from it because we're forced to give them money because of the previous administration. I don't know. I think it's okay. The government should try and get something out of it if we're being forced to do it. But I do agree. It's a slippery slope.
Exporting the idea of a free market around the world for as long as I can remember. And this is a major shift. Do you not agree?
No, I think this is a very special case of Biden committed the money. You know, President Trump and Howard Lutnick weren't very clear that they wanted to continue to let the money go out because the paths weren't being crossed, the hurdles weren't being crossed. And so I think it's a very special case. But again, the general principle that if the U.S. government is able to create a situation that benefits everybody, then it should benefit the taxpayers too.
And here's the thing. I know our government wanted to create some kind of sovereign type wealth fund. So maybe this is their way of starting that, where they have, you know, they have pieces of potential success in American exceptionalism that helps the government, again, grow at a faster rate than what it's printing away for inflation and the debts it's accruing.
But if you're saying that this is really just the beginning of more as it relates to a sovereign wealth fund or something else, it would be suggestive of something very different. And I wonder how we in the United States and maybe even around the world should think about the idea of national champions, which is something that we've been, and the Republican Party in particular, has been quite critical of for years.
No, I mean, we're absolutely not in the business of picking winners and losers, but this is not a thing that is unprecedented. If you look at it right now, the U.S. government owns most everything of Fannie and Freddie. And the president, led by Bill Pulte and Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent, are studying what should we do with that equity in Fannie and Freddie right now. They've been bringing in Wall Street leaders to discuss it as well. And so it's not unprecedented for us to have a little bit of equity in something. And again, what President Trump wants to do at all points in time is maximize the value of taxpayer dollars.
Well, let me ask you this then. In terms of improving the future of Intel, one of the things that it needs more than anything else is demand for its chips, which it does not have at the moment. And so there's two ways to get there. One is just make better chips, which they need to do. But the other is they're going to have to find customers. And the question is whether you believe that this administration is going to use its influence with other companies that would otherwise be the buyers of these chips to buy said chips. We had a period of time, remember, where Gina Raimondo in the Biden administration was trying to persuade.
Here's the thing. I could see them in some way doing that, incentivizing American-based chips, but that should benefit Taiwan Semiconductor since they're trying to build here now too. And so I do see the government doing something similar to what he's talking about, just maybe not specifically for Intel.
Amazon and so many other companies to buy these chips unsuccessfully at the time, but criticized, if I remember, by Republicans for doing such a thing. So do you believe that someone from the administration is going to call up any of the tech companies and say, you're building a data center, we'd love for you to use Intel chips?
No, I don't expect that's what's going to happen. I think what is going to happen is with the cash inflow that they've gotten, in addition to some money from outside private funders, Intel's going to get its act together and once again become the leader in chip space.
Can I ask one related question? Because I wonder if you think there's a historical sort of rewrite of history. Some people have suggested that the Biden administration should have taken equity the first time around when the CHIPS Act was first put in place. And the reason I'm curious about that is because I think at the time it was clearly to incentivize chip companies to come to the United States, do business, build fabs, and that fabs at the time were considered uneconomical, meaning companies didn't want to do this unless they could be subsidized. Now, maybe you could argue that given the tariff regime that's been put in place, it's changed the economics of what the playing field looks like today. But at the time, I think it would have been very difficult to go to these companies and say, I'm going to give you cash, you're going to give me equity, because I think they would have said to you, then please don't give me the cash. Am I wrong?
Well, again, if you're a company that's losing money, the equity doesn't have much, if any, value. And the bottom line is that President Trump is building an America First agenda that includes, as you say, tariffs, which will make it so that people are much more incented to bring their production onshore.
Yep.
And so 100%, we expect that companies like Intel that are onshoring production are going to become increasingly profitable.
Yeah, agreed. They're going to do better and better and better because of these tariffs. Pushing companies to build in the United States. And that's why they're probably happy to get that 10% stake. Again, they're forced to give this money to Intel. And the exchange is if we're still forced to do this because of this previous act, we want a part of the company. And I think even though it's a slippery slope, I think it's the right move for this. And they know that they don't have to force people to buy Intel chips or force them with the foundry, that they're likely to see a positive outcome because of the tariffs that are being implemented and a push to get more people back into the United States and building here.
Because of the president's trade policy.
Kevin, it's Will Fair. I wanted to move the conversation on to the Fed. Did you welcome the tone of the chair's speech on Friday, the pivot, I guess, that started to appear?
Right. Yeah, I think that the pivot was accurate. It was data-driven. If you look at the trailing 6-month inflation rate, it's 1.9%. Core is about 0.5% higher than that. And so inflation has gone way down.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the economy is looking strong, but not too strong. And so I think it's appropriate for the Fed to consider now doing what federal funds futures markets are saying they're going to do, and that's cutting rates. And so I think that the Fed's a little bit late to the game, but I thought that the presentation that Jay Powell made up at Jackson Hole was sound.
And he saved his legacy, and we talked about that happening, that he's going to care more about his legacy than going after Trump. And that seems to be the case. Again, I think people underestimate the amount that people want self-preservation and people to think of them positively than they do getting vengeance towards some other party. Some things I wanted to talk about, guys. So Metaplanet, again, I want to jump into this maybe for a second. It looks like in the U.S. market, we are going up after almost 5%, 4.5% last week. Again, we pointed out this overshoot. Usually when you overshoot, it wants to bounce right back up again and get above the line, and that's a good sign. And so it looks like Metaplanet is trying to do that after getting added to another index, which is going to provide massive amounts of liquidity. And again, these guys get that tax benefit account within Japan too. So you've got additional volumes because they're not just in, was it Aqueous that they were on? I can't even remember. I know for sure Smarter Web is on that one. But it looks like we're going to see a bounce in Metaplanet today too. That's exciting. I could see that being more and more positive. DFDV is down 10% on a $125 million equity raise. Yeah, I could see that. Anytime people are seeing dilution, they freak out a little bit and the price drops unless they're super stoked about the dilution, in which case, oddly, sometimes it'll go up. Hey, Jesse, joined late. Are you still thinking ETH and Sol treasuries are the faster horses? I do for now. Until they run so fast that eventually they're not the fastest horse anymore. But I do for now. Let's go back. I want to look on that same note here. Let's just jump into Metaplanet real quick, and then we'll look at some other things. So short interest is still really high on Metaplanet. I think we're sitting in the 20%. If we look over here, they acquired an additional 103 Bitcoin today or over the weekend. And then again, this I put huge on this because Metaplanet has been added to the FTSE Japan Index in the September review. Another important milestone stone in our journey, Japan's leading Bitcoin treasury company. This is massive because, again, it just gives huge amounts of equity, the ability to come in. Also, Dylan LeClaire, an advisor to Metaplanet, said Capital Group has increased its stake in Metaplanet to 55.1 million shares, or 8% as of August 15th, up from 44.8 million. So, again, some big companies are adding to their holdings. You own about 20,000 Metaplanet? Awesome, man. It's nice that it's finally getting the bounce. Again, it got beat up pretty good. It took longer. Because Metaplanet took its time on the drop, but it dropped about 65-66% in U.S. markets, and now it's still showing down 61% roughly from the high. So again, but it's bouncing, and it's looking better, and we love that. Real quickly here, let's jump over to Ethereum. So USDE, this is Ethereum-based USD stable coins. Are outpacing the growth of everything else, including USD Tether. And so that's a good thing to see. It's a good thing, again, that narrative that we have with Tom Lee talking about how most stablecoin growth is occurring on Ethereum still appears to be true. I also believe this. Mag says Ethereum top 15,650. I do believe this is true. They said in the same post, hey, if you wanted to be conservative, you could get out in the sevens. I do believe between 6,500 and 10 is probably a good place if you want to be conservative and get out. You do have to realize that these things do most likely have diminished returns. But like Tom Lee said in a recent interview, he believes that the longer, the Cathie Wood statement, the longer the consolidation, the bigger the breakout. I agree with that too. And I think Ethereum's very much hitting that. And if you look here historically, highest weekly candle close ever, Cantonese Cat posted here. We just hit that. And if you look over here, guys, why is that a big deal? Well, the last time that happened, here's what happened next. The last time this happened, here's what happened next. And then even with diminished returns, we're talking $10,000, $15,000 for Ethereum now. So again, a little bit less each time. If we cut that thing in half, it's like 7,500, 8,000. So I think that's coming. And over the weekend, we did have new highs. Well, a new high in Ethereum. I think we hit that new high maybe even a couple of times over a short time frame. And then a new yearly high on Solana, or at least since March, I want to say. So that's doing better too. Jesse, you may have covered this already with CleanSpark. What is your take on the change of CEO? What do you think? I don't know. It sounds like they're trying to go into HPC plays now. I like Matthew Schultz. Zach Bradford, I guess, was getting paid a ridiculous amount of money. I'm not really paying attention to miners anymore. I do have a lot of money still in, well, not a lot of money, but a lot of option contracts for miners, over 10,000 between Mara and CleanSpark, and I'm hoping they do well. But if they don't, whatever. Again, I don't love miners right now. They've got a really tough business. Ted Petey, I lost a lot of money this year and not exiting positions early enough. We all have the BTC treasury pain. Hopefully I get it right on BMNR this time. I think Bitcoin treasuries are already turning around now. And Metaplanet being up 5% in the day is a pretty good indication of that. It's doing a lot better than, Mara and CleanSpark, which are down. Well, I guess Mara's down a little less than 4%, and CleanSpark is down a little less than 4%. So we're finally getting some churn on that. I think, again, they're going to do a lot better. And I think BMNR is definitely the fastest horse, I think, in the Ethereum collection side of things. Charting Guy said alt season started on June 27th when BTC dominance topped for the cycle. I agree with that. People keep asking me, when do you think the altcoin season starts, Jesse? When is the altcoin season starting? And it already did start. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Ethereum went from like 1,500 to the 4,000s. So that's a pretty good indication of it. And it started over here. I'll probably even turn this up. Let me do this way. This is probably a better indication here. Yeah, I'm sure it is. Look at that. It's almost perfect. So you could see where it topped over here, and now we're going down. And I think again, I've got alerts set here, I've got alerts set here, and I've got alerts set down over here. I should probably actually even just start it right there based on volumes. But I think we're going to continue to drop with dominance. That's the normal pattern, right? So we'll start to see support somewhere down over here at the 44% range probably, before we start this all over again. But the ranges have been tightening up for dominance. You can see over here where Bitcoin in 2017 at one point was 98% 98% dominant. And then in 2017, it went all the way down to 35%, which is crazy. But then this last cycle, we went up to 72, 73%. That's at the peak of the bear market. And then we went all the way down again to 39%. So it makes sense that we'll probably go from, again, a peak this time around of like 66%. And then maybe we'll end that in the 45 or 40% range down over here. I totally believe that can happen. But we're very much in altcoin season. There's a ton of charts that show us we're in altcoin season. We're going to be looking at more of those right now. And again, my shout out from Tom Lee, which I love. Thank you very much, Tom Lee. It's cool getting a couple 100,000 people looking at Tom Lee saying that I'm making good calls. I really appreciate him. But I called this, which was that Ethereum and Solana, again, were breaking out, and some of these altcoins were breaking out against BTC, and that's going to continue to happen for this week. Token terminal liquidity has network effects. 12 of the top 20 stablecoin deployments by supply are on Ethereum. And so, again, you can see the growth that we're seeing on the Ethereum network when we consolidate down to that and take out the others. It's growing really fast. Tom Lee, ETH breaking to all-time high. If history is a guide, is a start of a far larger upward move. Pre-market wisdom, larger the base, the bigger the breakout. This was a pretty big base. And again, Shardy B talking about the ETH BTC pair looks strong, and we've retraced just a little bit, but it still looks strong. I also like this chart here from Mr. Crypto. It says it's finally time. ETH is entering the parabolic phase, and they've got a target around 15,000, which I like because, again, you can see how it diminishes each cycle, 186x, 40x, and then over here where we were down at like 1,200, this could be a 10x. That wouldn't be a crazy increase versus previous. And it looks at diminishing returns and economies of scale, which I think some people just do not pay attention to, which is super important. Breaking, U.S. President Trump adds another 5 million in ETH to his portfolio today. That was on the 23rd. So again, just follow the money. And about the stablecoin index, so again, this is more than just the USDT and USDC that we were looking at the other day. But the thing I wanted to point out is in 6 weeks, we saw a 10% increase in stablecoin issuance. This is generally a pretty good sign where we are at this part of the cycle. Also, I said 3+ trillion is a safer target. So this is Merlin the trader talking about the total 3 just confirmed the breakout and how he believes that, we're headed up a lot and that his target's 5 trillion. I would argue, again, the point of diminishing returns, that we're not guaranteed a 500% pump when we, at that time, went from $150 billion cap all the way up to like 1.1 trillion. That's a pretty big pump, right? From here to here, that's a big pump. And now talking about something similar and getting the exact same percentage return makes no sense at all. My friend Crypto Gucci, and I'll look at chat and try and get caught up in a second here, said the past 24 hours in Ethereum, this was on the 23rd, ETHZilla files a $10 billion offering. Guys, keep in mind that Bitcoin had a $20 billion offering. They've only used a small percentage of that. They're only 25% to their goal right now, I think, of collecting 5% of Ethereum. And so now we have ETHZilla talking about $10 billion. Bitmine buys another 45 million more ETH. ETH gas fees are at historic lows. Bitcoin whales continue to sell BTC for ETH. We saw some of that this weekend. Somebody asked about it. Yes, it looks like there was a pretty large Bitcoin whale that sold a decent chunk and then bought Ethereum. You're probably going to see a bunch of people do that. It's the speculation time of the cycle, especially with rates coming down. So they put SBET, BMNR, and ETHZ are some of my mentioned stocks on Bloomberg. Again, I like this guy. I like the summary. I appreciate people that do that. Also, Milk Road put Ethereum just broke a record most people don't know about. It became the first major asset in history to hit $500 billion. So it did that quicker than anything in history. So if you look here, $500 billion, it took Apple 36 years, Microsoft 24, Amazon 23, Tencent 19, Alibaba 18.6, Google 17.4, Tesla 17.4, Meta 13.5, Bitcoin 12 years, PetroChina 8, ExxonMobil 7.9, Ethereum 5.8. So again, these are records being broke. And if we look here, guys, at the altcoin index right here, this is the crypto total market cap excluding Bitcoin. Again, you can weigh this in a whole bunch of different ways. You can see that it started to break out on the RSI down here. And at the same time, we're in a breakout zone with a continuation pattern getting ready to happen for altcoins. This is beautiful math. It's very exciting. Tom Lee put ETH. And so this is about somebody posting ETH bears with short positions liquidated at all-time highs, frantically pulling up the validator exit queue chart to hold on to one last piece of FUD and seeing that it has peaked and has started to decrease. So what are we talking about here? So the validator exit queue is right here. And what they're saying is it looks like it's starting to peak and roll over. And so if you look at the 90-day here, you can see how it's starting to drop. And so, and there's more entries coming in. So this is just in regard to staking. So again, this will just be one narrative, an additional narrative that disappears with Ethereum in the not too distant future. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So, and it's pretty exciting too when you think about the fact that almost 9% of the supply has been consumed by ETFs and treasuries. And if you look back here to March of this year, that number in total was, let's see here, what was it? Total of 3.5 million ETH, and now that number is 10.5. So this has went up 200%, 3x the locked up supply being bought up by ETFs and treasuries over that period of time. I think that's pretty huge. Would you consider BTC as gold and ETH as cash? Yeah, kind of. That's a good way to look at it, actually. So I would consider ETH the digitization of information and tokens, right? So like there's all these different, like Robinhood is doing some of this right now with layer 2 ETH. I think it was Arbitrum, if I remember correctly, where they're tokenizing different securities. So I think of it as like the tokenization aspect, but I do like how you referenced it as cash, because I wouldn't consider it like your safe haven, really good gold type asset. It's just not as sound money as Bitcoin is, and it won't be. But at the same time, these two are trying to jockey for some of the same things and also very different. And as Tom Lee says, Ethereum is not Bitcoin. And so I would agree. They both can do well, and Solana will do well too. Solana is better than Ethereum in a lot of different metrics, not uptime, but a lot of other different metrics. But I do think that's right, though. I think it's getting ready to explode. Bitminer, the company, they have ETH, they said here. And again, this is just showing PayPal's adoption of it. PayPal's very tiny, though, in scale. I think that's it for the Ethereum side of things. I have no idea how with ETHZilla is, but I bought someone. Jesse did last week. Congrats. Hey, man, that's turned out pretty good, right? So if we look at ETHZilla, we can actually segue into that real quick. We talked about how there's a huge gap all the way up to 450. That's going to naturally try and close. And so if you bought it where I did, you bought it over here in the 2.9 range. And let me see. I think I have that in a chart somewhere. Let me see my account over here. Let's look at ETHZilla. So yeah, here's some money that we have in ETHZilla. Let's just bring that over. So our entry, looks like we have $130,000 worth right now. We're up about 20% since purchasing it. So again, just from Friday morning, I've made an extra $22,000 by purchasing ETHZilla. And we believe that it has more upside price action. So again, it's a nice way to offset other things that aren't performing as well. Market cap, 508 million, it says. But again, it's up here now. And we believe that it's got further upside price action. And that looks like just the gap alone, guys, gets us to another 22% upside on top of the 20% we already have. So I do believe that that's good. And again, if you haven't paid attention, there's this website, strategicreserve.xyz. I'm going to post it in chat. It does a good job showing you all these different companies. They added a bunch of stuff in here. They added cash on hand, EPS, profit loss, target. There's a bunch of additional fields here that they're reflecting that show you. And again, they've got to add it with others when they publish the data. We're trying to standardize a lot of stuff like this right now. But you can see how far along people are from their treasury strategies. I've got a feeling SharpLink Gaming will be expanding theirs significantly to try and keep up with Bitmine immersion. And again, Ether Machine's a big one. ETH is now a big player because we know that they're trying to do $10 billion. Whoa, we've got Draper talking. Oh, I got to listen to this. There's no way I'm skipping Drape. I love this man. His eyebrows, the higher his eyebrows get, the more gains you get in the market. Right now, they're relatively modest, but I'm imagining as the cycle wears on, they could go up at least another 6 centimeters to an inch. Let's listen real quick. Oh, better get volume.
One of the earliest crypto investors is back to over 30 unicorns, including Tesla, SpaceX, Skype, Coinbase, and Robinhood, just to name a few.
I love Draper because Draper is probably not the smartest person in the room, but he definitely has a great eye for seeing the future, and it just goes to show that you don't have to be the smartest to see the future and invest on it.
Of his big winnings. Joining us right now, venture capitalist Tim Draper. He's the founder and managing director of Draper and Associates. Good morning to you, Tim. It's great to see you. As I mentioned, you have been early and early often with a lot of things, and one of them is Bitcoin. You have a particular view that we are about to go on a new rocket ship as it relates to Bitcoin.
This is a really exciting time for the world in so many ways. Where Bitcoin's going to completely transform the economy, and You
used to work with Tim Draper. Oh, dude, I love Draper. He's such a cool dude.
I mean, three things that are really major.
Awesome.
One is Bitcoin's going to completely transform the economy. One is that AI is going to take all our jobs, and one is that stem cells are going to make us live forever. So, Bitcoin, live forever. And lose your job.
That's right. That's a lot to contemplate all at one time. Maybe we might need the Bitcoin to fund the UBI or whatever is going to happen. But we're looking at Bitcoin right now.
We'll start with Bitcoin.
At about $110,000, $111,000.
I love Draper.
What is your bull case for what happens next? We've obviously had a big run up. There's been a little bit of a pullback more recently. What is the next inflection point if you see one?
So I've been predicting $250,000 for a Bitcoin for a long time, and turns out I haven't been right yet. But we've gotten halfway there, so that's very exciting. But Bitcoin is a hedge against bad governance, against government spending, inflation, which you heard from the last speaker. Bitcoin is your alternative that allows you to deal with the major changes that are happening in government policies over time, and you're seeing it in many different places, and it's sort of Bitcoin started in places where you wouldn't expect something to start. It started in Nigeria and in Argentina and in El Salvador and in Malta,
right?
Places where
they need it.
Think new technologies wouldn't really occur, except those were the places where, in the case of Malta, it was freedom, but in the other cases, right, they weren't confident about currencies. And over the long haul, we're seeing government spending just, uncontrolled, and it just keeps going. Government spending as a percentage of GDP has gone on a rapid tear over the last 100 years, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down in any way. And your only hedge against that kind of government spending is Bitcoin. unless you want to hold gold, which is like holding onto shells, or
right.
It's like being prehistoric in your thinking about
Tim, what is your take then, talking about government spending and free markets and all the things all wrapped up in one in this decision by the Trump administration to take a stake in Intel?
I don't care about that.
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting. That was both administrations. One actually made it possible, and the other one just decided where to put it. But in both cases, our government is spending more money, and that takes away from the free markets. I'm a believer in free markets. I'm a believer in free trade, and where the government gets involved, it always slows down the economy. And that's true in every situation, every government. Socialism just never has worked, never will work.
I agree with all that. I don't know if he's going to say anything that's unique that we don't already agree with. I do want to pull something up real quick here, though. That Charlie Bolillo just posted. So here's something I wanted to talk about this. So he said that the Fed's balance sheet has shrunk 22% over the last 32 months, while the S&P has advanced 73%, dispelling the myth that the stock market is dependent upon QE. It's not dependent upon it, but this sure didn't fucking help it. The Fed dumping a bunch of assets, if anything, neutered the stock market's increase going back to, the beginning of 2023. So this is just another case, in my opinion, where with the Fed slowing the runoff and stopping it, and then potentially, I'm not saying that they're going to be buying with their balance sheet again. I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. But with them stopping the runoff now, that's less sell pressure for the markets. And then at the same time, if they start lowering rates and the bond market feels optimistic about the futures of the U.S. to be able to repay their debts, because again, if we don't lower rates, it makes it to where there's a lesser chance that we can repay our debts in the future. So we have to lower them. I don't know. I think this is all good stuff. Let's real quickly, we're going to jump over to Bitcoin. 3.5 working out well so far. Thanks, man. Real quickly, Bitcoin. I said it's healthy for Bitcoin to diversify away from large OG whales. So again, people talked about over the weekend how there was a whale that ended up selling Bitcoin and potentially buying Ethereum. I actually think that's healthy. If you look over here, the whales are the big dark colors on the bottom, and then you have like the next tier and the next tier and the next tier. I like that since 2017, we're seeing more retail, smaller accounts getting into Bitcoin, and we're seeing this diversify and spread out even more. It's the wonderful thing about the network is you get these bigger whales disappearing and having less sell pressure. And again, you start to get it to where there's more people involved in the network. And we want to see that happen. Also, Merlin the trader said the Bitcoin that never data never lies. Here's what he said in here. He said, hey guys, pay attention. September is going to be a bad month because it was in 2021, it was in 2017, and it was in 2013 for Bitcoin, right? So this was showing that the returns weren't as good for the month of September. And then it also shows that the numbers in October were ridiculously good. 40%, 47%, 60%. You can see how they're diminishing over time, but how they were good. I would argue another thing that we're not paying attention to in his post, but you should pay attention to, is that November is really fucking good too. So it's October and November that are really good. But you say, what happened in 2021? Well, we raised rates at the most aggressive rate in history right over here, and we neutered this market. So I would say that with us doing the opposite this time around, October and November should be really good fucking months. So, and again, the downside, 7% is nothing. I'll take 7%. And here's what's going to happen. The market, Bitcoin, as it bottoms, the multipliers will end up bottoming first. So we're already seeing the bottoms. I'm going to make that argument on the Smarter Web Company. We're already seeing it on Metaplanet. We're probably already seeing it on Bitminer and SBET and all these others. We've seen the bottom, I believe, on all of these. Even though Bitcoin could tread a little bit lower, I think it's just winding up for its parabolic phase. And so I think we've seen the bottom in all of this stuff. And I think the next direction is up. And I think October and November are going to be good. And I think even September for, again, multipliers will be good and you'll make money, not lose it in the month of September. That is my thesis. Colin Talks Crypto just shows these comparison of where we are this cycle in white versus previous cycles. You can see the Genesis to 2012 was really high, peaked early. You can see in 2012 to 2016, that should actually say 17. You could see where we peaked lower than that. You can see where in 2021 we peaked lower than that. You can see where in 2024 it says we peaked lower than that, and now we're here. I would argue though that we've got some ground to make up because we had again got neutered last cycle. Charty B said, there comes a point where the market realizes that even though BTC goes down, that doesn't mean that ETH has to go down also. In fact, it could be enough money flow to where BTC and ETH are both going up, and ETH goes up parabolic in the meantime. I agree with that. Miners have bottomed. It feels like that too. I agree with that. I think they bottomed a while ago. I think miners bottomed in like April. I agree with that. They could still lag and underperform. Ray Dalio saying that people should have 15% of Bitcoin in their portfolio. I just love how much bigger these numbers are getting. Nags posted here, Bitcoin daily chart still looks promising. Dips are for buying. Actually showing that Bitcoin could go down still to 105-ish thousand range. I don't think that's insane. I think we could have a down to the right consolidation, maybe for weeks, while altcoins go higher. Also, again, Michael Saylor with more dots, endless dots, love it. It looks like the stock price doesn't love it, with the stock being down 3.8%, but it was up 6% on Friday. Eventually, though, I think that people are going to start liking MicroStrategy, but MicroStrategy could be top this cycle too, guys. The volatility thing, this one, I mean, let's just look at MicroStrategy and come to the terms with some things, okay? MicroStrategy is a much larger cap. It is hard to move a $101 billion cap. I believe the max this cycle is somewhere between, I don't know, I had 700 and 820. Maybe it doesn't even reach that. Maybe we get up to 532 or 600 and then we stall out and roll over. Maybe again, I think we at least get to the previous high of the 536, but here's the thing. Again, $101 billion. Are people going to jump into this so that they can double their money? Or are they just going to stick with Bitcoin because this operates at a multiple? I think they're more likely to jump into a Metaplanet that's a $4 billion company that is 1/25th the size. Don't you? I think they're more likely to jump into a 1/25th the size, or a company that's barely $1 billion, like the Smarter Web company that again overshot its drop last weekend. It got all the way down in the U.S. to $1.81, then climbed its way back up into the twos, settling at $2.11. I think they're more likely to jump into a Smarter Web that is 1/110th the size of MicroStrategy, and they're looking to ride that growth higher than they will MicroStrategy. So I am of the opinion that MicroStrategy could have actually topped this cycle, and that we might not see a higher high than what we have right now, and that the benefactors of that will be Metaplanet and Smarter Web Company and maybe a few other Bitcoin treasuries, and things like BMNR will be the benefactors of that too. So maybe, again, we don't even get up to the 700 range. Maybe it goes just a little bit higher and then it drops down. This is starting to become my base case. What's more likely, this thing going to 210 billion or some of these others outperforming? Do you think MicroStrategy gets added to the S&P? I don't, actually. Again, there's people like Josh Mandel and others that I've heard where they think it's happening. I don't think it's happening. That's just my 2 cents. I do want to look at something though, real quick. I'm going to pull something up on the screen here. I need to go to the bathroom. So I want to listen to Tom Lee on Friday's close here for 4 minutes talking about what's going to happen now that the Fed is going to lower rates. So give me just a minute for a bathroom break and we'll listen to this too.
Dow hitting a record high following Fed Chair Jay Powell's remarks this hour, signaling a policy adjustment. Joining us here to unpack what we just heard, Tom Lee, head of research at Fundstrat, chief investment officer of Fundstrat Capital. Good day to be a bull like yourself, Tom.
Yes, it is.
How do you process what we just heard?
Well, I think that it's the Fed acknowledging that the risks now are tilted for the labor market to be softening, and they want to head that off, especially because they don't think that tight labor markets are going to necessarily create inflation. That's a very good sign, and I think it means we have a dovish Fed again, and that's kind of a green light for small caps.
Small caps
and for equities.
They are working. Last I looked, small caps were up 3%. So is this what we need to really confirm the sort of broadening that comes and goes in the market?
Yeah, because I think that one of the things we should watch for is what happens to mortgage rates. But mortgage spreads are right now 360 basis points higher than the 10-year. Historically, it's 1.6 percentage points. So you could see a huge drop in mortgage rates. That's going to help housing, helps the financial small caps. And I think already the ISM, which has been below 50 for almost 30 months now, could finally go back above 50, and that's a good sign for industrials.
Although we had a discussion right on the heels of the speech about a little steepening in the curve. Is there a sense that the vigilantes are at least present, if not being necessarily vocal?
Yeah, but we could also be steepening because growth expectations are improving as well. So this could be like what I'd call a bull steepening. I'm not really sure what the fixed income terms are, but I think it's actually a positive sign for growth.
The only real losers today are going to be some of the yielders and some staples. Would you be cautious on those?
That's right. I think that markets have been holding their breath. They've been getting defensive. That's why we've been bleeding for 5 days. And so now I think there's a relief and some capital gets put to work, and it's good for equities and risk assets.
So, all right, we need to make some news here, Tom. Everyone listens to you. We're at record highs now for the S&P and the Dow. How much more can these stocks rally?
I think there's a lot of upside, especially because, once you get an ISM back above 50, it really does argue for a broadening of markets. And I think one of the leaders probably comes from the financial sector. So I think, towards the end of the year, 6,800, 7,000 is possible.
Led by tech still?
Yeah, so I think you still want to play
this week.
Yeah, you want to be long AI and the crypto trade because those have been the market leaders. So the Mag 7, Bitcoin, Ethereum. But the broadening is really the financials, industrials, and small caps.
So you like them all?
Yeah, it's kind of cyclicals, AI and crypto, but not the defensives.
Your crypto calls have been getting a lot of attention lately, especially on Ether.
Yes.
Where we were talking earlier, we were debating whether it's the future of the financial system. A lot of people are thinking, people like you have said that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important moment happening this year with, the Genius Act, really greenlighting stable coins, and then Project Crypto, which is Wall Street moving on to the blockchain. I think it's a lot like 1971 when the U.S. dollar went off the gold standard. That created the innovation of Wall Street because they had to sort of essentially create this synthetic dollar. Wall Street moving on to the blockchain is a bigger moment, and I think that's why Ethereum is essentially having its 1971 moment equivalent.
But a lot of people just see it as
I love him tying this in with the removal from the gold standard. It's just wild.
It's wild speculation and froth.
I'd say anytime something goes up, people tend to call it froth. I think they called AI a frothy trade now, but we know it has a lot of legs, and it's been taking place for a couple years. Keep in mind, Ethereum is...
Keep in mind that Bitminer just went positive in pre-market. It's like meandering around zero right now. Again, still one of the highest volume stocks that's out there. Even though Ethereum is down 2.5% on the day, let me see what the actual price is. Ethereum's only at 46.43 after hitting a new high and going into the 4900s over the weekend. And we're seeing BMNR doing great.
It's also the place where when agentic AI comes together, when you have robots and you want proof of human, you want to make sure those commands come from, a verified source. That's all taking place on a smart contract. A lot of it will be Ethereum.
Tom, thank you. We just scratched the surface on that one, but we'll have you back very soon, no doubt. Tom Lee.
All right, so real
Welcome
quickly,
back.
Just in regard to it looks like my comments about MSTR got people interested and talking. Yes, Josh Mandel said that it's basically already happened. Josh Mandel is from Salomon Brothers. he's been right on a few things. He's also a chaotic element, I would argue, on a lot of others. But do I think that MicroStrategy is going to be included in the S&P? Man, I don't. That is not my base case. If that happens, I think Bitcoin treasuries are going to the fucking moon, along with Ethereum treasuries and Solana treasuries. So that's just a bonus to me. If that happens, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it happens in September. I don't think it happens in December. I think that if you're the S&P, you're thinking we should be conservative and wait to see if there's a bear market, and then allow them in. But who knows? Again, it's just a bonus to me. If we get that, I'm fucking stoked. If we don't get that, hey, I didn't even have it priced in, so it's not a big deal. That's kind of my thoughts on the matter right now. I did want to speak about this. Do we think the cycle's over? Let's listen to Dan Tapiero. If you don't know Dan, Dan is a brilliant man. He's the founder of the 50T funds. He is an OG in the crypto space. And Dan says the bull market doesn't end with 82% of those surveyed by Morgan Stanley saying that they don't own cryptocurrency. Tiny long exposure in BTC and ETH versus 2022. All of these metrics will make new highs in price and ownership during the cycle. 2026 will be a boom year. I think we could drag into 2026 because, again, we've got the opposite circumstances of what happened in 2021, where we had a shortened market and we didn't have a November rally in Bitcoin and altcoins because the Fed raised rates at the most aggressive rate in history. This time around, we had the opposite of that. And again, I don't hold any crypto, and 2025 is higher than it was in 2024, which is crazy. And the amount of people that say in 2025, the top 5 cryptocurrencies currently held, the respondents, only 12% of them said Bitcoin, which is crazy. That's way lower than 2024, 2023, or 2022. And then Ethereum, again, only 7%. Solana, 7%. That actually ticked up a little bit because, again, it kind of started its rally earlier. XRP is at 5% from nothing. Maybe that just wasn't included before. Cardano down to 3%. Again, this does not scream irrational exuberance in any way. Miles put total 2, one of the most bullish charts I've ever seen, just showing the total 2. This is the Bitcoin and Ethereum together. Or I'm sorry, excluding BTC, crypto total market cap. My bad. Total 2. That's what it means. Excluding Bitcoin. It looks like it's ready to scream higher. And then again, I believe this is a conservative metric, but I think we at least get to Bitcoin 147, so you shouldn't be bearish until then. And I said this is my base case. It's not. It's not like I'm keeping my money until 220, but I do believe that this is possible. I think that we can get up to the 180 to 200,000 in Bitcoin. Don't have to. And then drop back down to the sub 100 range, just barely, maybe even getting down to 70,000. If we don't go that high, let's say we only go to like 160, 180, and we could drop down, I would say, into the 80s or 70s, right? That's like not a crazy number. A 55% drop would be a lot less than what we've done historically. And then we start it back up again and just keep continuing ahead. That's kind of what I'm planning for. Also, I said I was right about this too. On August 18th, about a week ago, we said, hey, it's not crazy for Bitcoin to drop down, get into the sub 110,000 range, and then try and go higher. And that is kind of what we've done, right? This is what, if we look in the bottom right corner, this is what we've done. And I think we could grind here for a little bit, but I do think the path is up. Let's see what else we got here. Anything? I think that's enough right now for that. What a discount that will be, 80,000. Yeah, but again, that could be after 160 to 200,000, getting down to 100 or 80. Will seem like you're poor and like you've lost all your money. But right now, if I told you that we were going to drop down to 80 and then we would start going back up again, you'd be like, shit, that doesn't sound too bad, right? I can weather that storm. But people, if we go to 160, 180, 200,000, and then we go down to 100K, people will be like the sky is falling. That's how it works. MSTR has been qualified for a while, I think. I say Hood gets added to the S&P before MSTR does. I agree with that. I think that's what happens. But again, it's just because they're available to be added doesn't mean they do get added. That didn't happen right away with Tesla. They did get added fairly quickly, but they were eligible for like at least 1 or 2 quarters, maybe more. I don't remember. You guys correct me in chat before they actually got approved for the S&P. So there's weirdness sometimes. That's how it works. Tom Lee and the investors behind it, although SBET seems to be building a better overall team. I don't agree with that. I don't know why people do this either, the comparison between SBET and BMNR. SBET, you have the founder, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, who I believe thinks that Ethereum is literally going to replace Bitcoin. I think that's delusional. And then you have also, again, the head of the digital strategy that helped create IBIT from BlackRock, which I think is a large beneficial thing for SBET. But at the same time, you got Stanley Druckenmiller and BMNR. You have Kathy Wood, even though she's been selling some. You got Tom Lee with BMNR. You've got Peter Thiel with BMNR. You got a lot of brilliant people. So I don't know, man. I think that's like, it's like, hey, what's your favorite color? My favorite color is this. Yours is fucking stupid. I don't get that mentality. Everybody can have their favorite color. It's okay. BMNR has higher volumes. So, I mean, it's got that going for it too. So it's technically still winning. But as I said before, I said SBET would do better. Last week, SBET closed up 15.7%, whereas BMNR was only up 12%. This is great. Again, they're going to play a catch-up trade. I'm cool with that. Anyway, let's keep going. Let's look at Solana real quick here. Oh, no, you know what? I want to get to Tesla, too. Let me get to Tesla. So, highest recorded Moose test result of any vehicle. Wow, great work, Tesla. So, a reputable Chinese automotive publication, they have this test that they did on the Model Y L, the long edition. And it had the highest recorded score ever at high rates of speed from maneuverability, control, everything, right? So these cars are great. I wanted to point this out too. I said, Elon will make America great again. Why did I say this? He said, I have a plan for that. What did he have a plan for? Let's go up. We've got Elon Musk saying XAI will soon be far beyond any company besides Google. Then significantly exceed Google. When Elon says stuff like this, you should fucking listen to him. I can't believe I'm not subscribed to Elon anymore. I should do that. Not that he needs my money. But this is from a post from XFreeze. XFreeze says, XAI is the speed force the world has never seen. In just 2 years, XAI leads at the top with the world's most powerful AI with Grok 4 release with extremely small team. XAI's Colossus data center in Memphis built and became fully operational in only 2 days with 100,000 NVIDIA H100 GPUs. Jensen Huang called this superhuman stuff, and only Elon could do it. Because before that, nobody had invented a way to connect that many GPUs together, and they said it was impossible. But Elon and his team did it. Later, it was doubled to 200,000 in 92 days. There is nobody that compares to this. But why am I going back to this again? Elon said XAI will soon be far beyond any company besides Google and significantly exceed Google. Companies in China will be the toughest competitors because they have so much more electricity than America and super strong at building hardware. They're not that good at building hardware for these GPUs. They can't do it. They're way far behind. NVIDIA was the best they were going to get. They're not even getting the H20s. But they do have manufacturing prowess, because they've been doing it forever. They just don't have the technology they need to be able to make these chips better. And they're still failing at that. But I do agree, they have more power, and that's an important thing. So Penny 2X said America should be building more power plants and battery storage. Elon said, I have a plan for that. Again, this is good, right? This is what we want to see. We want to see that Elon is going to correct some of the issues of the administration where we're not doing enough on the power front. And I trust that he will. Bitminer added 190,000 Ether tokens to 1.71 million in the past week. Cool. I should get that post real quick. Let me just... Did I already have that one? That might be just the update, right? I'm trying to think of what the number was over the weekend. That's probably right. That might not be a new post. BMR announced... Okay. Yeah. All right. We'll do that one. Oh, nope. I don't want to quote anything. Does Tesla still own a solar company? No. Solar City was his relatives, and that's pretty much been stripped away. They do kind of own a solar company. I mean, we still have the solar roof and they still do solar deployments. So, I mean, I shouldn't say no. Technically, yes, but it's just virtually nothing. It's nothing in regard to revenues. It's nothing in regard to deployment. But I do think that they'll be able to ramp that up. And I think the biggest thing is the battery storage. The battery storage will make everything else worthwhile. We just got to keep doing better at that. I want to talk about this too. Sorry, I'm snotty today. FSD is here, and most people are in disbelief about Tesla's future. Tesla, this is when money is made. And so I'm saying this off the back of this post from Elon talking about how version 14 will be better than human for sure, but I don't believe it'll be 10x. I think it'll only be 2 to 3x. He thinks it'll be 10x with 15, which is coming before the end of the year, from my understanding. That's amazing. 10x better than a human is amazing. Again, this car drives me around everywhere. Sawyer Merritt said Tesla spotted doing robotaxi validation in Bee Cave, Texas, about 15 miles west of Austin. So he's showing you the geofencing with the current penis and shaft and balls right here. And then we've got Bee Cave way over here. So it looks like we're getting ready to blow up. I said game on for another month. What did I say that in regard to? The $7,500 tax incentive. Why did I say that? Because the IRS just updated its guidance. If you enter a binding contract and make a payment, even a small down payment or a trade-in before September 30th, you've officially acquired the vehicle. So anybody who's reached a contract for a vehicle and made a small down payment or done a trade-in between now and September 30th will be eligible still for the $7,500 tax credit, which means we're going to see some benefits of this throughout the end of Q3. Which is going to be good when we start reporting on Q3 and Q4. So that's beneficial. We also, people said, hey, you need to do more. Oh, I think my daughter's leaving. 1 second. All right, sorry, I just had to yell at my daughter. So people were saying the Model X and the S were getting these benefits of like free FSD, supervised supercharging, premium connectivity, premium service for 4 years. But the Cybertruck wasn't. The Cybertruck is now. That should help sales. We've got Waymos doing what Waymos do, just running into shit. We have, again, a breakout that we've been calling for a while here. We called it over here and said, hey, we're going to start breaking out. It's going to happen. We're going to push towards 600 by the end of this year and maybe hit 600 by the early next year. And that appears to be what's happening. Again, we kind of showing it over here. It looks like we're trying to go up. Maybe we even get 600 this year. But we're breaking out. We're consolidating. We're finding support, and we're going higher, and that's what we want to see. Oh, let's see. What else we got here? I think that's it. That's it for that front. AI and chips real quickly. Good morning, Jesse. Probably you're going to hate this question, but what do you think about game? I don't even think about it. There's your answer. Breaking, XAI just revealed macro hard doors. Why is this important? It's the first AI-only operating system, and if this is meant to fuck with our friend Bill Gates, who has Microsoft Windows. Instead, now we have macro hard doors. It says introducing NOS, a neural operating system where nothing is hard-coded, everything is created on the fly by Grok. Here's your first look at the OS's visual style. This is not a joke. This is real. Elon's talking about creating a non-hard-coded OS that is a neural network operating system to replace Windows. I feel like people aren't paying attention to this. Join XAI and help build a purely AI software company called Macro Hard. It's a tongue-in-cheek name, but the project is very real. In principle, given that software companies like Microsoft don't themselves manufacture any physical hardware, it should be possible to simulate them entirely with AI. What? How are people not screaming this from the rooftops that we're looking to replace Microsoft Windows? I could tell you what. I will have one of those. I'll have a Windows-based, or not a Windows-based machine, but a PC-based machine that is running macro hard and basically Grok natively sitting beside me on one of my monitors. If they do this shit, that I'm doing that right away, man. It's insane. Also, I said this about Elon's comments about XAI. His goal is 50 million in units of H100 equivalent AI compute. but much better power efficiency online within the next 5 years. So he said 50 to 100, I think, later on here. It's just a crazy fucking number. But on top of that, I said tokens are performing better and dropping substantially in cost. So think about tokens as like what it costs to be able to query certain amounts of information. The prices have dropped like 90% like the last year. This is hugely beneficial to efficiency across all these enterprises, and maybe even for maybe more so for small businesses is my argument, because you could have one person who's really good at AI or incorporating Palantir into your organizational chart, and you're able to find efficiencies that you could have had 10 analysts and not been able to figure out across multiple silos. It's just we're going to see levels of efficiency gains that people have just never thought of before. And I think it's important to notate that Elon said Grok is evolving much faster than other AI companies. Again, if you look at iOS app updates in the last 2 weeks, look at Grok, 25 updates. Look at ChatGPT at 4, Claude at 3, Gemini at 3, and DeepSeek at 3. The rate of advancement is very important. I hope people realize this. And again, we talked about this before, but data centers are exploding. The numbers that Elon just gave us show that happening even more. Guys, if we have 1,256 concurrent viewers here, can you please do me a favor and hit the like button? That is freaking awesome, and I would greatly appreciate it. Really. Galaxy Digital is jumping. It says Jump Crypto and Multicoin Capital aim to raise $1 billion to buy Solana per Bloomberg. Another $1 billion into Solana. That's a big deal for price action. That can move Solana a lot. Something also worth noting is Sol Treasuries have purchased locked Sol on the OTC market, the over-the-counter trade market, mostly DFDV and UPXI, the two that I own. So Solana's price didn't reflect 100% of the demand because, again, it's not in the open market. For UPXI, it was about 40% locked Sol. As the demand ramps up, OTCs will run out of locked Sol and the demand will hit the exchange and breakout for Sol's price action. I actually think you're going to see this first with Solana, but probably before Ethereum. But this is a big deal. Again, these guys end up staking these and locking them up and holding them. When we see increases like what we've seen with Ethereum, where, I mean, again, this is just so important to look at. Even just over here, again, since kind of the announcement from Tom Lee, we had 5.5 million ETH locked up between Ethereum treasuries and ETFs, right? And July 9th, okay? And so in a period of less than 6 weeks, we went from 5.5 million locked up to over 10.6. So we've essentially doubled the amount of Ethereum that is locked up, that is not available. And that kind of increase, almost to 10%, we're about at 9 right now, of the total supply being purchased by ETFs and by treasuries. If that gets to 20 in the next month and a half, Ethereum's price is going to be so much higher. Solana's like that on crack. So again, I've got a much smaller allocation right now, but I think it's going to be huge, and I think people are overlooking it. I also posted Solana will confirm that it's breaking out over the course of the next week. So if you just look here, this is the weekly time frame showing that we have 7 days, that this is a 2-month chart showing that we've got 7 days and 22 hours before this ends up setting. If we end up setting above the 202.3 range, we'll have had our highest 2-month candle close ever. And that is a sign of things to come. Then the next to break will be the monthly, and then the weekly and the daily. So it's going to get very, very interesting. Fred Krueger, who hates Ethereum, just keep that in mind. I'll make a guess. $3 billion into a $109 billion asset of Solana is 3%. I'm guessing that raises the price by 60%, Solana 324. He goes, can you imagine what would happen to Solana if a smart treasury company raised $2 to $3 billion to acquire it? So again, he's saying we could see a really big increase in price if just one company ends up doing this. I agree, it's smaller. Shardy B had a nice chart here that shows Sol to BTC ratio. This does look like a breakout, right? This looks like we've tested up here in almost like a head and shoulders type pattern, in that we're looking to break higher. I agree with that. And Sol to ETH also looks like it's going to break out higher. These are really good things. You want to see this. You want to see the smaller caps doing really good. And I just showed here, I said everyone is sleeping on Solana right now. This is from August 13th while they watch Bitcoin and Ethereum scream higher. And I was just saying, I think we're going to see Solana go a lot higher. It could go as high as 900 to 1,500 with an overshoot, in my opinion. Did you go to the Emit meetup? Oh, yeah, Emit had a meetup. It was cool. Let me show that real quick, too. Oh, no, I can't show it in here. There's a video from it that I thought was really nice, man. You could just tell Emit was drunk, and you can tell he loves the people that are around him. This was the meetup. That is not Emit. But let me see here. There's one video I want to show. It was really cool. All right, I love this guy. Whoever's standing right next to him. This is Adam. This is Adam, right? I didn't realize Adam was that big. Adam gave me my first shot on X, guys, when I had no followers. He gave me a shot on X. I didn't realize how much he towers over Emit. Attention, please! Makes Emit look like a tiny person.
Just need 30 seconds of your time.
Anyway, this is good. He's giving love and talking shit to Emit. Where's the one from Emit talking, though? I want to see if I can find that. God, I didn't realize how many videos there are. Is it in here? Fuck, where'd that video go? I know I reposted it. Oh, it's here. It's here. You guys got to see this. It's just a minute. It's really good. It's really sweet. All right, here we go.
Let me just say one thing. Genuinely, you guys know, a lot of you guys know my story. I was 11 years old when Michael Jackson died. He inspired me. I said, hey, I want to be the next king of pop. I tried to sing a band, that shit didn't work. But the amount of times I imagined myself in front of an audience of people that care, love, and respect each other for the same purpose has been my whole life. And the fact that it's happening, and it's you all made my fucking dreams work. One life, you got one chance to try to live your dream. From the bottom of my heart, I cannot explain how grateful I am that you guys helped me live it. And that we're all getting rich along the way.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really proud of Emit. I think he's done a great job, and he's made people very rich by sticking with Palantir, Robinhood, and he built relationships with these people too. He's crushing it. I've actually heard that he's going to have Tom Lee on his show Tuesday, I believe. So you guys should check it out if you haven't already. Let me see here. Do we have much else? So the market's open. We'll look at that real quick. I do have to go in a little bit, guys. So you might want to bounce over to Emit's stream. And again, or maybe he's not here today because I have a lot of people watching today. So maybe Emit isn't available. If you guys could, though, please hit the like. It's such a huge help for this channel. If you guys could do that, that would be great. Pre-market, just taking a look here. We've got Apple down, Amazon down, AVGO down, Baba up, Palantir down 1.66. Let's look at some charts here real quick. So we've got ETHZilla up. It looks like it's retraced a little bit. It's it was up quite a bit more in before the market popped. It got up to 370. Now it's only up about 4%. It's closing that daily gap though, because it created one when it was up here. It already closed it. If you were looking to get in on this one, I think now is probably a good time to do it. Because again, we still have 30% upside to close that gap. We also, if I remember correctly here, it looks like asset entities, we had this thing popping into pre-market too. Looks like it's still doing okay, but I would expect, guys, that there's going to be a close in this one down to the 450, 60 mark. So I would just be wary of buying in when something is up 25 to 30%. You can already see it starting to come down. But again, if you haven't gotten in, this thing is in a breakout zone of a trend line that started in May. So if you want to get into something that's breaking out from a downward trend since May, maybe think about doing it in the 450 range, 460 range, right? That seems very doable. So I'm excited about that. BMNR is down 4% in pre-market. Aspet's down 5.61. So we're seeing, again, that the Ethereum treasury is taking a little bit of a hit here. heading into the morning. We got Sequoians down 1.94 on the Bitcoin front. We've got DFDV taking a 13% hit after going up 20+% last week. It looks like Upexi's down 8.83% again after doing double digits last week. Metaplanet's still up 2.54. CleanSpark's down 4.5%. Mara's down 6%. Jesus. Iron's down 2%. Let's see how some of these other things are doing here. Let's just look over. Let's go back over to here and just see what other things. Let's go into Palantir here real quick and look at their chart. So yeah, Palantir, it looks like the market's just taking a little bit of breather heading into the morning. I think that's really healthy. Again, I think, just to be clear, I think Bitcoin's going to kind of, go sideways to down without dropping too much. I think Ethereum and Solana will take the leads. I think that they're going to end up doing really well. Hey guys, so far today, at least Smarter Web Company is doing a little bit better today, up 4.3%. And again, it had its overshoot to the downside. Now would be a good time to consolidate in order to be able to break out of that downward trend that started in June. So I think all of this is really looking healthy. I think good times are coming, guys. You just need to focus on the fact that global liquidity isn't set to end, per Michael Howell, one of the smartest people I can find in global liquidity, until the Q1-ish end. That's what we're looking at right now. And remember about all the deregulation. Remember about all the money that's looking to funnel in. And shit, I'm going to have to go here soon, guys, because I've got contractors coming. So I'm gonna let you go, and I apologize. I will see you Wednesday, and I'll see you online, okay? Peace out, guys. Bye.